And nor also should we reduce the deficit without learning the basic lessons of fairness. We must protect those on middle and low incomes. They did nothing to cause the crisis, but are suffering the consequences. I say, the people who caused the crisis and can afford to do more should do more, with a higher banking levy allowing us to protect the services people rely on. And we should learn the basic lessons of history too. After 1945, we had the biggest debt we ever had. That generation did cut the deficit. But we know they had a bigger vision, a vision for our economy and a good society. True patriotism is about reducing the debt burden we pass on to our kids. But Mr. Cameron, true patriotism is also about building an economy and a society fit for our kids to live in. You see, Mr. Cameron, you were an optimist once. But now all you offer is a miserable, pessimistic view about what Britain can achieve, and you hide behind the deficit to justify it, and we won't let you get away with it. I have a different ambition: to emerge from the global economic crisis tackling the deficit, but also learning the much deeper lessons that this generation must learn. It is a huge challenge to change our economy for the future. And I tell you this, the same old thinking will lead to the same old results. An economy too dependent on financial services, too many people stuck in low pay, and growing inequality. We need a plan for change, a plan to reform the banks, invest in the industries of the future, and support the small businesses and entrepreneurs who are the lifeblood of this economy. The new generation in the party understands the fundamental New Labour lesson, that we must build prosperity as well as redistributing it. And it also knows there are huge vested interests and huge barriers to the wealth creators in this country, particularly small businesses and the self-employed. These must be tackled. I tell you this, I am determined to make Labour the party of enterprise and small business again. And I want British business, large and small, to be able to take advantage of globalisation. And New Labour was right to be enthusiastic about the opportunities that come in a more connected world. The movement of goods and services, the chance to travel, new markets for our companies. But this new generation recognises we did not do enough to address the concerns about globalisation, including migration. Let's be honest about this conference. All of us heard it on the doorstep, the concerns about immigration. My story is of a man I met in my constituency who told me he wasn't going to be voting for us because he'd seen his mates' wages driven down by the consequences of migration. If we don't understand why he would feel angry, and it wasn't about prejudice, then we are failing to serve those in politics we seek to represent. I am the son of immigrants. I believe Britain has benefited economically, culturally, socially from those who came to this country. And I don't believe either we can turn back the clock on free movement of labour in Europe. But we should never have pretended that it wouldn't have consequences, consequences that should have been dealt with. We have to challenge the old thinking that flexible labour markets are always the answer. Employers should never be allowed to exploit migrant labour in order to undercut people's wages. And if we have free movement of labour across Europe, we need proper labour standards in our economy. and that must include proper protection for agency workers. Now, every democratic country recognizes that it is vital that workers have a voice that speaks for them. And I've had amazing experiences during my leadership campaign meeting people. And the story that sticks in my mind is the workers who I met, the dinner ladies I met, who told me about their experience. They had to buy their own uniforms. Their shift patterns were being changed at a moment's notice. Frankly confident they were being exploited. So they looked to their union to help them. They weren't interested in going on strike. They loved the kids that they worked with. They loved the schools. They loved their job. But they wanted someone to help get them basic standards of decency and fairness, and that is the role of trade unions in this country. So responsible trade unions are part of a civilized society, and as I say, every country recognizes that. But I have to say this to you. All of us in our movement bear a heavy responsibility. We want to win an argument about the danger this coalition government poses to our economy and our society. But to do so, we must understand the lessons of our own history too. We need to win the public to our cause. And what we must avoid at all costs is alienating them and adding to the book of historic union failures. That is why I have no truck, and you should have no truck, with overblown rhetoric about waves of irresponsible strikes. The public won't support them, I won't support them, and you shouldn't support them either. But it is not just from trade unions that I want to see responsibility. This new generation demands responsibility from business too. During this campaign, I have met some extraordinary people doing amazing service for our country. I remember a care worker I met in Durham. She worked hard and with dedication, looking after our mums, dads and grandparents when they couldn't look after themselves anymore. She is doing one of the most important jobs in our society. And if it was my mum or dad, I would want anyone who cared for them to be paid a decent wage. But she was barely paid the minimum wage, and barely a few pence extra for higher skills. She told me that she thought a fair wage would be £7 an hour. But after all, she would get that for stacking shelves at the local supermarket. I believe in responsibility in every part of our society. That's why I believe not just a minimum wage, but the foundation of our economy in the future must be a living wage too. And we need a tax system for business that rewards responsibility, to pay a living wage, to provide high-quality apprenticeships and family-friendly employment. And you know, and this is something we didn't confront in government, we need responsibility at the top of society too. You see, the gap between rich and poor does matter, and it doesn't just harm the poor, it harms all of us. If you look at those societies that are healthiest, happiest, most secure, it is the more equal societies. And what does it say